Hey everybody, Sean here, and welcome to Revealing Truth. And special thanks to Stephen Sveck for sharing this. Brandon Briggs became an instant success after his almost accurate quote-unquote prophecy about Donald Trump. And now he's got almost 400,000 deceived followers. Mike Winger probably did the most thorough coverage on him with 2.5 hours of exposing footage on this guy. But despite the clear evidence that he's a false prophet, he still gets tens of thousands of views, if not hundreds of thousands of views on his videos. And notice, the highest views are on the videos where he says, "The Lord showed me," or "The Lord said." And by the way, praying in tongues isn't that important in the last days. Otherwise, God would have us all doing that. But instead, tongues is a gift God gives, and we don't all have the same gifts. But I hope today helps those who are still following him realize that he's just another storyteller that we've been warned of in the Bible. This first one is about his personal visit from Jesus.
Hey, good morning, family. Well, I'm going to talk to you all about the time whenever Jesus woke me up in the middle of the night and ministered to me. This was October, it was around October or so of 2014. And this experience forever changed my life. And I just feel that in my heart, when I first started out doing YouTube, I tried to tell you all what he said. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do it again because it gets buried with the algorithm and it gets buried at the bottom and nobody sees it for all these new faces that are here. And I want to tell the people, because this was an experience that I had with him that changed my life forever. And so, here we go. Well, I was sleeping and all of a sudden I felt the tap on my shoulder, on my right shoulder right here. And I was just laying in bed, on the side and I feel this wake up and I hear this wake up. I'm talking like audibly, wake up, touch me. And I wake up and I looked over and Jesus was standing in my room. And most people will say, was this a vision? No, this was not a vision. This was real.
And I know we quote the same Bible verses over and over again, but we have to because people just don't seem to get that Jesus is not making personal visits to people today. When the disciples were watching Jesus ascend, the angels told them that Jesus would return in the same way, in the clouds. And Revelation 1:7 confirms that when he returns, every eye will see him. There's many verses that tell us Jesus is in heaven at the right hand of the Father. Not to mention that in John 14:3, Jesus says that he's in heaven preparing a place for us. And when he comes back, he's taking us with him. Could someone have a vision of Jesus? Yes, I believe they could. But anyone saying that Jesus is physically appearing to them is a liar. We could stop here, but this story just gets crazy and further proves that Brandon is a storyteller. Because remember, this isn't a vision. He's saying this actually happened.
I'm talking, he manifested in my house. And this was one of the I've only had like 2 times that it's not been an open-eyed vision that I'm seeing Jesus. This was a face-to-face experience that I had with him touching my shoulder and waking me up out of my sleep. And it startled me so much when this happened that there was a man, because I didn't recognize at the time whenever you're waking up out of a sleep and you're rubbing your eyes and you go, and I look over and Jesus is standing there and I feel his glory and all the presence and I'm thinking, am I dying? Is my first initial reaction was I'm thinking, I'm going home. He's coming to get me. But he said, I've come to answer your prayers. I've come to, and I said, Lord, what's happening? What's going on? And all of a sudden I look at my floor. Ladies and gentlemen, my floor was alive. And the glory of the Lord was so strong in my house that the floor was breathing. And there was a portal opened over in my floor. And I'm sitting on the edge of my bed. I flip my feet out over my bed, over the side of my bed, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at that portal below my feet. Jesus is standing right here on my right hand, right here where I'm sitting, and he's looking, and I'm looking at this portal, and the portal is alive, and I can feel the air breathing. It's blowing my hair, blowing my, and at that time I had a little bit more hair, not like I have now.
And that's about all we need to hear about this story, because that's all it is, a made-up story that sadly almost 10,000 people have already given a thumbs up to. So let's finish off with one more story from him about Adam and dinosaurs. But first, his lie about God showing him the creation of the earth.
Going back, so he starts it out speaking the world into existence. And whenever he spoke the earth, I saw the earth come right before me like a ball of clay. A massive brown ball of clay came right in front of whenever he spoke it into existence. And it was without form, and it was without void, right? And darkness was on the face of the deep. It all happened right in front of my face. And he's allowing me to see it in the timeline. And it's a ball of clay. It was a massive brown and red ball of clay. And when he spoke to it, it started to form. But there is no continents. It was all one big landmass. One big landmass in one area. There wasn't like South America, North America, Asia, all this, It was just one big thing. And I don't know how it all was divided, whether it was Noah's flood or whatever, which I believe it was Noah's flood that caused all this land to be divided and to create different continents, okay?
He says there was nothing separating the landmass and that he believes Noah's flood did that. But Genesis 1:10 tells us that God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. The separation of land and water was before Noah's flood. The flood just defined things even more. He's a storyteller and a liar. So let's finish off with his Adam story.
So then he takes me to the garden, and I see Adam, and he is ripped. He is not a plumpy looking dude like me. I'm still working on it. He has muscles. And he has a black looking beard, and he's olive skinned. He's not, I only seen his backside with the glory around him. He had no clothes on in the natural. He had a glory around him, okay? But he had a black looking hair, and it went into his beard, and he had a black beard, and it was perfect, okay? It was, the way he looked, it was amazing. His arms were ripped. He did not look deteriorated. Like how we look wore down. A lot of people's bodies look wore down. His body was not dead. There was no death. So he had no death around him. His body was fit and he looked good. Like seriously, there was no decay. So he was there, and he was communicating to this big lizard-looking dinosaur thing. There was like Jurassic Park, massive long neck looking dinosaur, and he was communicating to this dinosaur. I could see him pointing his finger at this dinosaur, and the dinosaur was looking down and was understanding what he was saying, kind of like how we talk to our dogs or our cat or whatever. He was communicating to this massive dinosaur.
One thing you'll notice with these storytellers like Brandon Briggs, Kat Kerr, and Bobby Connor is that they add a crazy amount of extra details to their stories. Like, that's going to make them more believable. But we've been warned of people like this in Colossians 2:18, and that such people go into great detail about what they've seen, and their unspiritual minds puff them up with idle notions. The King James says, intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind. False prophets are a dime a dozen these days, thanks to the internet. Brandon Briggs is not a prophet of God, and if you need more proof, I'll leave a link to the Mike Winger video in the description below. But we're going to leave it here for today, so leave your comments below, and until next time, take care and God bless.